Ages ago, we didn't know cameras could be phones as well. And of course, then we had the release of the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra.
Okay, it wasn't that long ago. It was released early 2021.
Okay, but it feels much longer.
I feel you on that one. But that's because the last few years hasn't been kind to us. So that's understandable. It feels much longer than it actually is.
Oh, that's why your hair is gone.
Okay, that was uncalled for. And no, it has nothing to do with that. That was well before it. Let's just stick to the script, shall we? Okay. In all the travels I've been through the last few years, there was one consistent. I almost always had my Mi 11 Ultra with me. And this wasn't just for comparisons, but also because I simply knew the performance of it and it would be there. And I knew that I would trust it to capture what I'm looking for. Now granted, when looking at the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra and its qualities in results, it's a very different beast to what you are used to from Xiaomi at its current state. And yes, the current Leica age of Xiaomi I do prefer. The Mi 11 Ultra is brighter and more saturated. It doesn't have that same feel that the current Xiaomi will give you. That being said, I still took it with me to the Nantes, to Ghent and so many more locations, but also Switzerland, where I really wanted to test out the newly released Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. And even I compared it to the Samsung, where the Samsung did lose out more often than not in still and video. Because the Mi 11 Ultra did not only retain more detail, it also captured the scene far better with less noise and less over-sharpening. Both the Samsung and the Xiaomi recording at 4K 60 frames per second. Straight away I think the Samsung looks quite sharp. I don't know what's going on with the image. And less contrast. I really like the contrast on the Mi 11 Ultra. The shadows have more prominence to it, is that the right word? But they stand out more, which I like. Samsung is trying to kind of remove him, kind of that feel it gives. I like the contrast between shots, and Samsung doesn't really do that well. Also, the mountain seems far more detailed on the Mi 11 Ultra than on the Samsung. And that is also down to the hardware they put in this beast. This was huge for those days, but it still holds up today. The main sensor is a 1/1.12 inch sensor size with a 50 megapixel resolution. The ultra-wide and the periscope both have a 1/2 inch sensor size with again a 50 megapixel resolution. Result-wise, this means that it still holds up, but even more so, what made this such a special phone was the possibility to use the rear camera easily as the one that you shoot your selfies with or your vlogs. It really doesn't matter because of that rear display that I had. Sure, it's small, but it did its job effectively. And in many shots I've used it simply because I could see myself and frame myself much better than I would with guessing. Now sure, don't ask it to do proper portrait photography shots. It doesn't have what you have in the current day and age of mobile photography, with it being limited to just one sensor and it being much wider. For portrait it doesn't work anywhere near as well. But when it comes to your normal shot, it still holds up really well. Again, look at the shots that I've taken on the Mi 11 Ultra with, for instance, in Switzerland. Sure, I came to test out the Samsung, but the shots of the Mi 11 Ultra stuck with me.
Now, not too long ago, I went to France to test out the new Vivo X200 and X200 Pro, which, if you haven't seen it, be sure to check out that video. But during those types of shots, the Mi 11 Ultra held its own really well, and it looked really natural in these kinds of shots. Sure, it doesn't have the crazy AI help that you have with some zooming shots in modern phones, but don't think for a second it's a slouch when it comes to using the periscope. The hardware behind it holds its own. There's a reason. When it comes to the Mi 11 Ultra, I get the most questions about whether you should buy it or not. Well, realistically, the answer depends on how long you plan to use the phone, because probably it's slowly reaching the end of its support. Right now, I would say if you plan to use it for 2 years or so, then yes, because it will still receive HyperOS 2. And if the camera matters to you, and even more so having that vlog possibility, then yes, this is a phone that I would easily recommend in those situations. Do you plan to use it for 4 or 5 years? Then no, naturally I wouldn't. Now, battery life does come to play, and because I had it since its release, it isn't anywhere near as good. And if I'm lucky, I get about 5 hours of screen on time and not great off-screen battery life as well. You could simply see if a professional can replace the battery itself and put new life into what is this amazing Mi 11 Ultra that I've been using ever since its release. But when it comes to the camera, there's no doubt. Yes, the Mi 11 Ultra still holds up really well. So, the Mi 11 Ultra, at the end I think this is definitely a device that you should look into if you want a phone that is good as a camera as well. Depending on the style that you need, of course. Like I said, the current Xiaomi does have more my preference in terms of the artistic look of the camera itself, and more looking like a photography shot than a mobile photography shot. But overall, when it comes to the camera, this is still very capable. And even if you want to use it for a longer time, I can imagine someone, for instance, vlogging, then something like this is excellent for it, because you can use that main camera as your vlog camera, because you can simply look at the rear display. For those situations, this is a really good phone. Sure, it isn't the best for gaming because it has the Snapdragon 888 inside, which isn't a good chip, and yes, it does heat up if you play games. But during video and of course stills as well, I really haven't had that issue. So the Mi 11 Ultra, still worth it, depending a little bit on your situation. Anyway, before we end this video, of course, naturally, thank you very much for the members. I really appreciate the support, especially for my channel size. If you want to become a member, you can click join below somewhere there. And of course, you can become a member that way. Either way, hope you enjoyed this video about the Mi 11 Ultra and how it holds up and why I've always taken it with me. Either way, have a good one and talk to you guys in the next.